Hi, Daphne. How are you?
Hi, great. I love what I see behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one of my favorite shots from that opening sequence was that storefront right there. So I had to put it on there.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
And speaking of that storefront, well, before I get started, The King on Screen will be in theaters August 11th and on Blu-ray on September 3rd of 2023. And that storefront was part of the main sequence for your documentary. Can you and it was filled with, I mean, there's so many people in it, and you just went above and beyond Easter eggs, some of the directors, the cameos, the characters, all from the Kingverse. Um, and actually, it's going to be September 8th for the Blu-ray. Sorry about that. Can you explain that process and how that all came about?
About the fictional introduction, you mean?
Yeah, like that whole sequence. How did
Yeah.
you come up with the idea, and how difficult was that to put everything just in that small part?
Well, it was such an interesting journey because we thought about doing something like, giving the audience the feeling that they were truly entering into the Stephen King universe at the beginning of the documentary, to have something
Mhm.
like something new as well, like people watching the films thinking, where am I, what I'm seeing exactly, and then understanding that they are in Maine, actually going into the film to meet with the directors. So we really wanted to have like this deep dig into the SKU, and we worked a lot on it. We shot the fictional introduction in Bangor, Maine, so it was really like going into Maine, trying to find the perfect street to make it
Yeah.
happen, because we really wanted to find one street and have everything in it. So people there were amazingly nice. It was incredible because they helped us a lot. I mean, the creep shop, if you would have seen the owner, he was like such a nice man. He allowed us to put everything like we wanted in the store. So it was pretty amazing. And talking with the producer, Sebastian Cruz, we thought, okay, if we doing this, we have to go like completely into it. And so we thought we should ask some of the actors who played in previous adaptations to
Mhm.
come to Maine and to join us. And we sent a couple of emails to actors that I really wanted to work with. And I was so thrilled because a lot of them said yes. And it was like amazing. And some of them are on screen, others are just a voice in the car, for example, through the radio, like
Mhm.
James Caan. And so yeah, that was pretty amazing to do. Quite difficult because shooting in Maine in February was like a tough thing to do, I must admit. But at the end, I had a great team to help me to put this off. So yeah, it was a great experience.
And how much research went into that? Did you have to go through a bunch of books and pick things out that you wanted to include in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I reread every Stephen King book before doing it because
Wow.
I wanted to have like one reference per book.
Yeah.
So there are like more than 300 references in the small introduction. Sometimes it's in the dialogue, sometimes
Mhm.
it's the way the characters are dressed. It's a lot in the background. It's the bicycle, it's the crib shop for sure. And in the crib shop, we went completely crazy because each thing is a reference. And I've got a great anecdote about this because the puppets, the creep show puppets that we put in the window was actually Greg Nicotero's one. So
Wow.
while I made the interview with him, I explained him the concept of the fictional introduction, and he said, "You want the puppet? I can lend you the puppet if you want it." He was like, oh, absolutely, yes, that would be perfect. So we were thrilled when we
Yeah.
received it in Maine, and like, okay, this is the most important item we have, so we have to be extremely careful. So yeah.
Yeah. That is some great trivia. I love it. And how did you know, what was the process like? How did this all start for you? What made you want to do this documentary and talk to all the directors about working with Stephen King?
Well, actually, I've read like all of Stephen King books, seen
Mm,
all of the adaptations at a very early age. And in 2019, I was talking to Sebastian Cruz, my producer, and I said, well, you know, I really want to make a documentary about Stephen King. And there were a couple of documentaries that already existed, but I told him I want to do something a little bit different, because I don't want to speak about Stephen King's life in details or
yeah.
about his books. I think it could be interesting to have another point of view, you know. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, the directors, since he's the most adapted author, I thought talking to the directors could be great, because they are working with the books to make it happen on the screen, and that all that process I thought was extremely interesting to talk about. Yeah.
Most definitely, because you don't hear it like from that side of everybody that's worked with them. You kind of usually when you do a documentary, it's usually you talk to that person it's based on, not a slew of people that they've worked with, which I love because everybody had their own perspective. There was some things during the documentary that I had no idea, which was great. It was all like a lot, there was a fresh take. So I had a lot of new information that I hadn't received anywhere else. So I thought that was great. And everybody seemed to speak so highly about him. He's well respected, and just, it was a joyful feeling watching all these amazing legends talk about this man. And that you and your team did a wonderful job. And this is something that I think I could watch a few times, especially that intro. And he said 300 times. I want to go through and see how many I can find now. Was there any director that you wanted to speak with that you didn't have the opportunity to do so?
Well, yeah, of course. I really wanted to speak to Marie Lambert, for example, because I
Yeah.
really worked, and also Brian De Palma, Rob Reiner, and we even got some help from some of the directors to reach them, but at the end it wasn't possible, sometimes in terms of schedule, or sometimes they
Yeah.
didn't want to make an interview because they were working a lot. So yeah.
And from my understanding, this was filmed a few years ago, I believe during COVID.
Yeah,
Maybe part of it.
some of it actually, because we started shooting like 3 years ago. We made the
Okay.
first interviews, we had to make them remotely. But then the fictional introduction, for example, was shot in February of 2022. So it was
Okay.
pretty
So
fresh.
well after. How was that? That was my next question. Was that very difficult doing the remote sessions with the directors versus in person?
Well, for sure, it's quite difficult in the sense that you always have some troubles with Zoom or
Mhm.
the thing you use, you know, to be able to ask questions, because sometimes you don't hear well what they say. They are a little bit far away because you take the sound on a special cinema mic, so
Yeah.
it's not always easy to understand everything and to be able to interact with them like in real life, you know. So, but I was thrilled to have them. So I thought, okay, the first interview we had to do like this. And then after we were able to, I think it's only 8 interviews on 27 that we had to do remotely. Most of the interviews we were able to meet them in person, which is amazing, really.
It's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. Um, is there any book that you would like to see adapted into one of King's books, adapted into a movie that hasn't been yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I really would love to see Jumaki. I think it's a great one. I think it could be outstanding. I mean, visually, it could be so interesting to see how it would work in a movie. I'm sure it can be really a good one. Yeah.
You know, and that's one that's not, which is interesting because that's not one that's well known.
Mm.
I have it on my bookshelf and haven't read it yet, but I might do so now
Oh,
since you
I
think it might be a good one to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great one. And the book, if when you talk to a lot of King's fan, when you talk about Jumaki, it's not like the
Mhm.
favorites, but sometimes they are, oh yeah, that's true. Jumaki is a great one. And yeah, I think it's a little bit more discreet, but it's a great book. And the main character is amazing. And I think it's one of the best King characters because it's such an incredible story, truly, really.
That's good. I'm definitely going to check it out now. And what was your first introduction to King? Was it through his movies, his books, or kind of both for
Well,
you?
actually, it was through The Shining. I was like, I've always been a huge reader, and I really wanted to read everything at a very young age. And
Yeah.
when I was 10, I asked my father because I wanted to read something scary. I really wanted to have goosebumps and to make nightmares. And he told me, well, if you want to be scared, then you should read The Shining.
Yeah.
And he gave me this book, and I was like, okay. I read it like in 2 days because I was so into it. And so that's the first time I discovered his work. Shortly after that, I saw the movie The Shining, Kubrick's version.
Yeah.
And after I started reading everything, I think it's right after The Shining, yeah, that I read, and then seen all the films. So yeah, it was through one of his most popular books that I discovered him.
That is a great story. I love that, how your dad introduced you to that, that world of Stephen King. For me, it was my grandmother. She would get his books periodically. And when I watched Pet Cemetery, I think I was like 8 or 9 when it came out. And then I read the book when I was old enough to read a novel like that. And so I can relate. It's yeah, they'll give you goosebumps for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And since this documentary was so well put together, it looked, I mean, I can tell you enjoy doing it. You have a passion for this type of work. Are you doing more of this with other subjects or other people?
Well, actually, I've got another one, but it's quite different from this one. It's a documentary about Hitchcock, and it's about
Okay.
the movie Lifeboat that he made during the war. It's called Hitchcock's Pronazzi film, and it will premiere at the Venice Film Festival in September. So
Oh, September of this year?
yeah, September.
Oh, wow, right around the corner. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a documentary that was more discreet, I must say. I did it at the same time than King on Screen. For sure, we had a lot of waiting time during the shooting of King because it took 3 years. So
Yeah.
at the time, I was working on different projects, and I should make Tim Burton as well after. So yeah.
Wow, that is great. I can't wait to check that out.
Great. Yeah, yeah. I think it will be interesting too because we want to make some animations and some things like that. So like each time the documentary will be a little bit different because we really want to be in the world of the author or the personality we are talking about. So yeah.
Oh, tons of fun. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I want to say, congratulations. And also thank you so much for creating this because the fans, including myself, they're going to love it.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you liked the film, really.
Thank you. And I hope you have a great day and best of luck with your future projects.
Thank you so much. Have a great
You're
day.
welcome. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.